Hey, welcome on in to another episode of the Baseball Insiders. As you will see, I'm here by myself in a different location once again. Hello from Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin. I am fresh off of one of the craziest series that I've ever actually covered in person with the Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers. It was exciting. It was thrilling. It was featured with comebacks, like huge performances from both teams, all players on each team, and there was the eighth inning last night that will be remembered for the rest of my life, and probably many other Brewers fans and Mets fans all across the country. But I am here to break it all down. It is very weird not having Adam Weinrib here with me. He is my sidekick, one of my close friends here at Fansided. But we will get through it today. Obviously, a burner. It is a single pod. Hold on to your butts. It is going to be pretty crazy, but we will get through it. But I want to start with what I learned at this Mets Brewers series, because as I said, it was pure chaos. Game one, the Mets taking control of that, and there wasn't really too much drama there in that game, but it really started with game two, where it looked like the Mets were going to just take control of it and end up winning the series just like that. And all of a sudden, the Brewers come back and there's drama with Willie Adames and Jesse Winker, with Winker yelling at Adames and then Adames yelling at Winker to meet him in the parking lot. And I can actually report, as John Heyman said, Adames did wait for Winker in the parking lot. That did happen. I don't necessarily know what the beef stemmed from, but the beef there is absolutely real. And Adames did wait in the parking lot for Winker. And that the series it featured so many different key performances, like the Brewers bullpen, besides Devin Williams last night, really stepped up. Their pitching from top to bottom should be commended. And the fact that, like, you talk to people around the Brewers, like, nobody really anticipated them getting there. Like, you look at outside the organization, like, nobody believed in this team. And, like, even if you looked at the roster, there were so many reasons that you can make a case of they're not going to make it. But they ended up winning 93 games. They won the division by 10 games. Pat Murphy, in his first year as manager, replacing Craig Counsell, did an unbelievable job. But you look at it, they were missing 4/5 of the rotation. They had so many rookies. They traded Corbin Burns. They lost Counsell to the Cubs. They lost Yelich for the second half of the season with a back injury. There were so many things that were going the wrong way for them, but yet they had so many young players step up. Jackson Chourio, you can't say enough good things about him. I ended up saying that Chourio was a star. There were somehow some people disagreeing with that. There was a guy named Marmol Season who said that Jackson Chourio stinks. That may have been the worst take I've ever seen, and I dunked on him appropriately on Twitter yesterday, so not a very good tweet, Marmol Season. But as far as game three yesterday, there was a lot of different emotions in that game. It was a pitcher's duel. Tobias Myers, enough can't be said about him. He did an unbelievable job in that game for the Brewers. And Jose Quintana, he struggled early. He wasn't throwing many first pitch strikes. But the job that he did settling in and getting through 6 innings was masterful. And it handed, like, both starting pitchers handed the game to the bullpen with a 0-0 game. So you would think that would favor Milwaukee, especially with how their bullpen has been all season long. And I think the job that Pat Murphy did managing his bullpen, like, there's people who are criticizing how exactly he went about it yesterday, but he followed the script perfectly. And he handed the game to Devin Williams, and Williams ended up allowing Lindor to get on base. Then Nimmo got a hit to get runners on the corners. And then Alonso ended up hitting a 3-run homer to right, and the Mets ended up winning that game 4-2. I will say I have been in some very difficult clubhouses before. I would say of all the clubhouses that I've been in before this, the hardest one I had been at was Trent Grisham when the Brewers ended up losing to the Nationals in the wild card game. I think it was 2019 or 2020. I can't remember what year it was, but before yesterday, that was the hardest clubhouse I had been in, but last night's was really difficult. And I mean, the game and the game was obviously a huge reason for that. And I mean, there is so many, like, they thought they were minutes away from going to the National League Divisional Series and heading to Philadelphia to play the Phillies. And there was a lot of disappointment. I give Devin Williams a lot of credit for how he stepped up and handled the media, and he took accountability. He didn't make any excuses. And I think that's what fans want to hear. But I think a lot of the players were feeling just a ton of emotion when talking to Bob Uecker. Uecker is a 90-year-old legend in Milwaukee. He's been doing this for 50 plus years, and they want to bring him a World Series. And there was just a lot of emotion going around that clubhouse because they wanted to do it for Uecker. And in typical Uecker fashion, he was going up to every single player after the game and wishing them a great season and telling them we'll see them again next year. We'll see them tomorrow because I think they're going to do locker cleanout day tomorrow. But Uecker is a legend, and you can see the emotion on all the players' faces. And it's something that I've still like. It was a really difficult environment, but all like that clubhouse. You talk to people around there, it's about as close as it gets. And they did a terrific job in Milwaukee. They exceeded expectations, and I fully expect them to be back. But there's some key pieces I want to touch on here. Is the expectation around Milwaukee is that a guy like Willy Adames will have more serious and more lucrative suitors in free agency. Like I would expect teams like the Dodgers, the Braves. Saw John Heyman mention the San Francisco Giants with Adames as well. There's going to be plenty of other teams who are in on Adames, but I would not be surprised at all if that contract exceeded or got around $200 million. And if that's the case, that would very likely mean the end of Adames's time in Milwaukee. As far as Rhys Hoskins, the expectation around baseball is that he will pick up his $18 million player option for next year and return to Milwaukee. So I think that's something to watch for. But Hoskins said after the game that he's undecided and he wants to take his time with that. But going to the Mets here, an unbelievable job by them. What they ended up doing and coming back, like they've done it against the Braves. They did it against the Brewers, and they're a team that they compete to the last out. And everything that they ended up doing last night was, I mean, they struggled. They only had 2 hits through 8 innings. And then they ended up rallying against the best, or one of the best closers in baseball in Devin Williams. And Alonso, despite having a really rough series, came through. And if he can keep that momentum going through the remainder of the postseason, however long that is for the Mets, he is going to be in position to get paid. And they got a really good thing going there in New York. That was one of the best wins in franchise history. And I think Howie Rose, that was one of the best, if not the best radio calls I've ever heard in my life. You could just hear the excitement, just everything that went into that call. Then them playing that in the plane on the way to Philadelphia, and then Rose getting just called over by the players to go celebrate with them was a pretty cool deal. And there was another thing that Justin just mentioned that I think is a really good and important question. Will Devin Williams get traded? It's something I've thought about, and we're getting to the point now where the Brewers in years past, they have traded players in a very similar case to Devin Williams, where he's got a year remaining on his contract. And when he does reach free agency, he is going to get paid because he's young. He's one of the best relievers in baseball, and he's very likely going to be out of their price range because that extension is going to be pretty lucrative. So I would look for the Devin Williams rumors to absolutely be a thing in the offseason. I mean, they did it with Josh Hader and they did it with Corbin Burns. Would not surprise me at all if they did that now or if they tried to trade him at the deadline, but they're going to get way more value for him if they traded him in the offseason than if they waited at the deadline. So I think that is something to absolutely watch out for, and I think that's going to be a pretty prominent rumor throughout the winter. But I also want to talk about what ended up happening in that Houston Astros Detroit Tigers series, because that was a really significant deal there, because we saw AJ Hinch go into his old stomping grounds in Houston and sweep the Astros. And now the Tigers are advancing. They're going to play the Guardians. I tweeted last night all the different playoff matchups, and I said, hell yeah, because I mean it's exciting. But there's people who are saying, this is not a very exciting series. But to me, you have a team that in the Guardians who way exceeded expectations. They got a rookie manager in Stephen Vogt. and just a tremendous, tremendous roster and a tremendous pitching staff, and a Detroit Tigers team that has gotten hot at the right time and is ready to make noise. I think the Tigers are absolutely in a position where they could upset the Guardians. But just to stick with the Astros, this is their first time like not making the ALCS and who knows how long. They've just had a sustained run of excellence there. And it's a really disappointing and shocking end to their season, especially considering the expectations that they had entering the year. But you have guys now like Alex Bregman, who's going to be a free agent. And I mean, based on his tweet of thanking Houston, maybe that signals that he's going to end up leaving. But they are going to remain in contact, and who knows what ends up happening. I mean, there's stranger things have happened, and the Astros and Scott Boras, who's Bregman's agent, have a history of doing deals together. So maybe they can come to an agreement here. But with Matt Chapman off the board in free agency, Bregman is in position to really cash in as a free agent. I fully expect him to. And if the Astros want to keep him, they're going to have to pay top dollar, because there's one thing I know about a Boras client. He is not going to take less money to stay somewhere. It's very, very, very rare that happens. And I expect Bregman and Boras to try to cash in free agency. And if he leaves, if Justin Verlander leaves, it could very well mark the end of their dynasty in Houston. And I know that's some pretty extreme talk, but there's already talk about them potentially lessening payroll. There's a lot of things that are going to be going on in Houston this offseason. I think they're still going to try to compete and add to that roster. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to take a lot for them to get back in the American League, especially with how many teams, especially like look at the AL East and look at the AL Central. There's so many teams who are competing, and it makes it really difficult for them to try to advance deep into the postseason. That being said, I would also expect a team like the Seattle Mariners to make more noise in the American League West as well. I mean, you look at it, like the Mariners have one of the best young pitching staffs in baseball. Like their numbers this season were just astronomically good. And I would expect them to be very aggressive in trying to improve the offense, which was their huge hiccup through this season, and why they've made changes during the season, like significant changes. And I would expect them to really try to add to that offense this year. But to close it out, I know everybody likes predictions here. So I'm going to predict the remaining series. Between the Phillies and the Mets, the Phillies are the team that I think wins the World Series. So I'm going to go with the Phillies over the Mets in 4 games. Dodgers, Padres. I have not seen a comment yet from Andrew Lee, which is not like him. He must be sound asleep. But I think the Padres win that series. I don't know how many games that'll be. It'll be 4 or 5, I think. But I think the Padres end up beating the Dodgers and advancing into the National League Championship Series. As far as the Yankees-Royals, I'll go with the Yankees in that one. I think that at this point, with the Astros eliminated, they have absolutely no excuse whatsoever not to advance. So give me the Yankees in that one. Then Guardians-Tigers. This is the hardest one for me. I'm gonna go Guardians in 5. That is my prediction. So we're looking at Phillies, Padres in the National League Championship Series, and then Yankees and Guardians. I think that is going to be what those matchups look like. I was pretty good in my predictions in the opening round, so we'll see if I can carry that momentum. But I do know we will have plenty of stuff to talk about through the remainder of the postseason. I will continue to travel. I don't know if I'll be at any of the NLDS or ALDS series, but I know I will be traveling at different points of the postseason. So I'll be able to provide you insight from inside the locker room, also give you what I'm hearing around the league, because, with the postseason getting deeper and deeper here, that means the offseason talk is going to heat up and my notebook is going to get more full. So I appreciate everyone who tuned in for the solo pod today. We missed Adam Weinrib terribly. He is my guy, but he is out doing what Adam Weinrib does, and he is dominating. But I will see everyone back here on Monday. So will Adam. I will be in Scottsdale again, so that'll be a very good thing because I miss Scottsdale dearly. But I appreciate everyone who tuned in. I will see everyone on Monday, and take care, everybody.